Well, 2024 is off to a great start for a company called Sweetgreen. The stock is up more than 190% as of today. It's Thursday, May 16th. And who's loving it? Investors, clearly, consumers, as there are new products being added to the menu, and there's a lot of innovation. So we are incredibly excited to bring in our guest, the CEO of Sweetgreen and the co-founder, Jonathan Neman. Jonathan, great to see you.
Great to see you too. Thanks for having me.
So as I mentioned, you're having a great year so far. I know we'll talk about steak a little bit, but I think first, something that you said recently on another podcast is that you're looking to monetize your autonomous technology even to other restaurants. So give us a state of play of what the system is sort of doing right now in your current location, how you're expanding, and how you're thinking about that even down the line.
Yeah, so we're very excited about what we call the Infinite Kitchen. It's our automation project to create a better experience for our customers, our team members, and better economics for our business. So about almost exactly 1 year ago, we launched our first live store after a lot of testing. First one was in Chicago. It's done phenomenally well, seeing some great results from customers. The machine helps us deliver food much faster. So we can deliver about 500 meals per hour, perfectly portioned, temperature controlled. Just really the quality that we're able to deliver with it is fantastic. Our team members love it because it's a little bit easier to work in that environment. It's fewer people, and we're seeing much less turnover. And we're seeing some really nice results from a business perspective as well. What we've said publicly is that we expect the machine to deliver about 7 margin points at the restaurant level. In Q1, the 2 restaurants that we have open, so we ended up opening a second one in California, in Huntington Beach, and the 2 together in Q1 ran a 28% restaurant level margin. So very excited about what we're seeing there. We think it's the very early stages of a platform shift, not just for us, but I think for many others to automation. And this year we have plans to accelerate. So 7 more stores this year, new builds with the automation, with the Infinite Kitchen, and 3 or 4 retrofits. As it relates to the monetization, we think one day that's an opportunity. It's not something we're focused on today. I'm really focused on delivering that solution for Sweetgreen and really scaling that in a profitable way. But over time, I think when you build something great and other people want it, there's always opportunities.
Yeah, I mean, I ask it obviously because if people are wanting to hold for a long time, right? That could be part of the growth story for you guys if they think about even beyond the quarterly earnings. I want to just kind of get into the day-to-day operations in these stores that have the systems versus stores that don't. What are the precise sort of enhancements to the process, time savings that the employees are currently enjoying that leads to, much less turnover?
Absolutely. So a few things that we're seeing. So on the team member side, one, you're operating with fewer people, and you're able, the team members still have to do a lot of the things they love. When I think about what we do in our, what is the Sweetgreen offering? What do we do? Starts with sourcing really delicious, high quality food. It's then all about fresh prep. We make almost everything inside of our stores every single day. So from making our dressings from store, marinating our proteins and cooking them fresh on the hour, taking all of our fresh vegetables, washing and chopping them. We still do all of that in all of the restaurants, including the Infinite Kitchen stores. The difference is now the actual assembly of the bowls is done by the machine. And that means the cold ingredients are perfectly temperature held cold, the hot are held hot, the portions are perfectly done, and the speed is there. And while we really do pride ourselves on the team member experience at Sweetgreen, that part of the job can be rather stressful. So by allowing, automation to take that part, we then have team members focus on the hospitality side. So instead of, focusing so much on the assembly, they're cooking the food and prepping it, and then they're serving the food. So they've finished the bowl, they're taking orders, they're talking to guests, and they spend much more time coaching and developing. And I think that's really the key of our business, really most restaurant and retail businesses, is it's all about what I call the people flywheel of developing future leaders. The core to our business is our general manager position, what we call a head coach. And today, 50% of our head coaches are promoted from within. Our goal is to get that to 80 and eventually 90%. And what's amazing about that is you can join Sweetgreen as a entry-level team member, dishwasher, work in the line, and within 2.5 to 3 years, if you work hard, you can be a head coach making over $100,000. I personally, my parents were immigrants to this country, had to start over, start with nothing. And really, I saw them build their American dream. I'm building, I believe in the American dream wholeheartedly. And we want to build a place where the American dream is possible. So automation is just part of that, but it's really all about the people. It's really all about creating opportunity, creating great jobs, because it's not just selfless. When we do that, it creates better experience for our customers, and it's a better business. It's a true win-win-win.
But when I talk to other leaders in this space and they shared their concerns about bringing labor in, one of the things that they always tell me is when you give an employee who's starting out a plan for their career, they are much happier. They see growth and potential. It's not just about that salary. So it sounds very much like the automation part of this gives them a sense that this is the exact work that I will be doing, and then this is the work I'm going to be looking forward to doing. And that's also why I use the word precision here, because I think in your field and the products that you produce, like, precision is so important to that ultimate dish that the customer is paying for.
Absolutely. Precision is so important. And when I think about the customer experience, what we're trying to solve for is some of the biggest pain points for our customers. So, we try really hard to get things accurate, but when you're making making food at the speed in which we're doing it and the customization in which we do it, 80% of our bowls are customized. So people are customizing it exactly to their liking, and they're all different. And so having a machine that can do that and can get things out on time really helps us. And, we measure our customer experience really through a lot of different ways, but NPS and our biggest detractors are always when we don't get things right or aren't on time. So this is a huge accelerant for us in not just creating a better experience, but eventually going to help us grow faster as well.
Well, yeah, so you touched on the margins. How profitable can these stores be, and in what amount of time?
So these stores, what we've said publicly is that we expect about 7 points of restaurant level margin improvement, at least 7 points. We're hoping that, over time with some sales leverage and other optimizations, that it can be more than that. But we feel very comfortable with the at least 7 today. Like I said, in Q1, they ran a 28% margin. So saw, about 10 points higher than the fleet. And I think we're going to learn a lot. I'd say it's still very, very early. We have 2 units out. One's, the first one just hit its 1-year anniversary. We have not even retrofitted a store yet. So we're going to retrofit our first store this year. We're going to learn a ton. What happens when you take a high volume. These 2 stores we had done were lower volume stores. They were, 2.6 million average stores. We have stores that do much more than that. So what happens when you put it in a Midtown New York store? And what are the benefits there? What is that walk away that we can capture in that moment? I think we're going to learn it. I think we're going to learn a ton. So I want to reiterate that we're very excited. We think automation is a huge part of our future and probably a big part of the future of the restaurant industry. However, it's still so early, and there's so much to learn, and there's so much to iterate for us.
And when you said 2.6 million, that's yearly?
Yeah, the yearly sales.
You've also talked about sort of the Starbucks stratification model of these locations, and you're being very selective in where you're starting with the low volume to the high volume. Do you expect the locations where you'll see automation at Sweetgreen to be in the more high traffic areas as sort of the primary goal to reduce that churn of employees, to, maybe even increase volume and precision? Is that sort of how you're running down the priority list of locations?
That's exactly right. We think it makes most sense in higher volume locations. We think over time it could make sense everywhere. But from a prioritization perspective, it's the higher volume stores that we think will see the greatest benefit.
And how else are you thinking about expansion? I mean, if you look at the Q1 numbers, opening 6 restaurants, 2, I believe, in Seattle, which is a brand new market for you. These are all company-owned stores as well. So when you look at where else you want Sweetgreen to be, what are the main factors that you consider?
So when we started Sweetgreen, we very intentionally wanted to build a national brand and a category leader. So while we started in DC, we soon moved up to New York and Boston, and then LA and Chicago and San Francisco. We kind of went to a lot of the major cities. Today, we're in over 15 major markets. And so we're in most of the major markets across the United States. Where we actually see the biggest opportunity is densifying the markets that we are currently in. So think about Seattle. It's a huge market. We have 2 stores. all of Texas, we have 20 restaurants. We can have, hundreds and hundreds of restaurants just in Texas, even California, which is a larger market for us, probably about a 40 or so store market. Again, should be hundreds and hundreds. And so while we will continue to open new markets, thoughtfully, we do have a couple new, we have a new market in Columbus that we are doing. We're going to be doing this year in Charlotte. We're also going to be doing Charlotte. So we have some, new markets that will plant seeds, but most of the opportunity is really densifying and building out the markets in which we're in. Intentionally slowed down this year a little bit. Our store growth last year, we opened 38 restaurants. This year, we're going to open approximately 25 restaurants. And our goal is to actually speed that up next year. And what we've said publicly is next year, we'd like to get to at least a 15% unit growth. And then in 2026, get closer to a 20% unit growth number and really target somewhere between that 15 and 20%. We believe there is tremendous runway and white space for this brand. We have 230 or so restaurants. We think that there can be thousands. And you look at some of the comps we have out there. Chipotle, as an example, has almost 4,000 restaurants, thinking they can have at least 8,000 in the US. So tremendous runway. We've seen success across all regions, all markets. And we think we're really just, kind of getting into the second inning of our growth here.
I know that when you started Sweetgreen, like Chipotle was going public. So there's a lot of parallels and you're bringing up Chipotle again. So I got to ask, is Chipotle sort of the blueprint in terms of the scale that you're aiming for?
I'd say they're really, I think in terms of a company owned model, there's not a lot of restaurants out there. Starbucks is mostly company owned, as is Chipotle. So those are two that we look up to for those reasons. And they've executed really well and built fantastic brands. But we also look up to brands, very, very much outside of food. Really iconic brands are the types of things that I look at, things that I look up to. So we've always said, like, I'd want to build the Nike of food in many ways. And yes, it's gonna show up in more stores because that's our distribution model. But we take inspiration from a lot of different places.
I want to swing back around to just getting some more details from you on how you think about where these locations make sense. With Equinox, that they look a lot at income levels. They look a lot at what other retail stores are in that neighborhood and how they want to be adjacent maybe to that. What are you looking at? I mean, Uber Eats just talked about how their suburban delivery business is doing incredibly well. I mean, where are you, again, targeting? What are the factors that you're looking at a neighborhood when you think about whether it makes sense for you to open a store there?
Yeah, it's really interesting. So when we started the company, it was very much urban focused. So we opened a lot in urban centers, really intentionally trying to build the brand. You wanted to go to places like New York and LA really to get that thought leadership and leading the category. Most of our growth is actually happening in the suburbs. So about 4 years ago, the company was 75% urban. Today we're 50-50 and starting to lean more suburban. So that is really a product of what the country looks like. There are many more suburban opportunities than urban, and we had already penetrated much of urban. So we're seeing, majority of our growth today be in the suburbs. And the things we look at, it really depends on the first to market, the first stores in a market where really it's about building the brand. So we look for iconic real estate, high traffic, high density, relative, we look at education levels, income levels, retail spending, discretionary spending, et cetera. And those things, office population and daytime pop. So we have a lot of science around picking what I call art and science around picking those locations. Once the brand is established in a market, we can then kind of spread throughout the market. And what I like to say is follow our customers home. And then we can start to look at different things, and different things matter. Things like visibility, access, parking really do matter in those situations as well. So we built a number of flexible prototypes, including a drive-through format, which we're going to continue to build on, a pickup-only format, and then our classic stores. And so we have different tools for different sort of neighborhoods, which another reason which gives us confidence on that huge TAM that we can go capture.
So the question that I know, we have a lot of at Axios, we have a lot of fans, obviously because DC, and that's where you guys began.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a huge fan of daily reader as well.
Thank you. This question comes from one of my colleagues, and her question really is, with $15 salad bowls, why isn't profitability kind of already baked in right now? How long is it going to take?
So we were adjusted EBITDA profitable in Q1. We're guiding for the year to continue to build on that profitability. So from an adjusted EBITDA perspective, have achieved profitability. The next measure would be obviously on net income. The difference on that is, the depreciation and stock-based compensation. What I'd say generally in terms of our path to profitability, we set out with a big vision. We wanted to build a really big company for a very long time. And so we invested heavily in building our supply chain, building our brand, building our ops infrastructure, investing in automation. So we had a pretty heavy, call it G&A or support center spend to support all of these things. If you look at our financials over the past 4 or 5 years, you'll see that G&A has been heavily leveraged. We've almost grown it. We've grown it very little. Year over year in Q1, G&A grew 6% while our top line grew 26%. So we're going to continue to hold the leverage on the G&A as we add more stores and expand the margin. And you can see how that profitability will begin to balloon.
And something else just weighing on you, I'm sure, is labor. The markets are rebalancing a little bit from at least the macro numbers. But from what you are seeing, is it still as difficult as it was right after the pandemic, to find the kind of workers that you need? What are the challenges there that you still face?
So we've seen a huge stabilization in labor markets. Things have gotten much better. Right after COVID, things were quite challenging. I think it's a combination of the markets improving a bit, and I think a lot of what we're doing in that value proposition for our team members, whether it be the wage, the growth opportunities, the tips, the other benefits that we offer. I think we're really starting to attract some great talent, and I think most importantly, the culture that we provide. And so it's still, labor is still the most important thing about running a restaurant business is our people. I'd say people are our most important ingredient. While people look at it as a food company, it's really a people company. It's all about the culture in our restaurants and those great leaders. And I think we've done a really good job and we'll continue to really focus on attracting the best and brightest.
So it sounds like some of the supply problems with labor is eased a bit for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talked about that in our Q1 call. We talked about how our turnover is down about 20 points year over year.
And just thinking about the labor costs going forward as the demand for more workers in restaurants continues to grow, people are having they're finding love in food in a different way, I feel like, in recent years. How do you think about competing against other restaurants? I know you talked a little bit about culture. And so the difference between working for a Sweetgreen company owned versus working for another brand that might be franchise owned, and you're talking to workers, what is the one big selling point that you think always has provided you with the right kinds of people to come into your doors?
I'd say it's two things. One is our mission. People come to us because they love what we do. They love what we stand for. And this idea of building healthier communities by connecting people to real food is something that resonates with a lot of people, and they feel like they're part of something. It's not just a job. And the second is the opportunity of growth. At our pace of growth, the number of restaurants we're opening, there's so much opportunity. You don't have to wait for your boss to leave for you to get that top job. We're looking to bring people in, and with the focus on internal development, there's so many growth pathways for people. So that is, I think, the other reason why people are excited to come to Sweetgreen.
All right. Let's switch gears. A lot of puns with the steak news. A lot of puns. The big question is around how it still aligns with your climate goals, adding protein, especially beef. Curious how you're thinking about growing the menu with more protein at a time when people are also, while they're trying to get their gains, they're trying to figure out how they live more sustainably.
Absolutely. So first of all, we're very proud of the steak that we put out. We spent a lot of time getting the supply chain right. And what we found is a grass-fed pasture-raised steak that is really delicious. You're using a tri-tip cut. It's really delicious and regenerative farm steak. So I think it's really a better product. And for us, we have a really big mission in terms of serving more people healthy food. And in order to do that, we need to meet people where they are. So it's about having those options and letting people make those decisions, and it to be better versions of what things that you would find other places. And so for us, we found customers were really looking for protein, as you mentioned, is a really big big health trend today. I don't think it should actually be a trend. Eating more protein, whether it be plant-based or animal-based, we believe is very healthy and nutritious. And so it's something that was important for us to introduce to our guests, especially as we're looking to broaden our consumer as we go to different parts of the country and drive our dinner business. So far the results have been great. With the launch, we've had multiple record days in the business. Great reception. The test went really well in Boston. We talked about 20% of dinner orders, including steak, and so we're starting to see a lot of great adoption. Some people, a lot of people coming back, some great feedback around it, and still a lot to learn. It's a first time doing meat, so getting it right from an execution perspective is something we're focused on. And I'll say sustainability is still really important to us. It's why we sourced the steak the way we did. And generally, our menu and what we do is far more sustainable than other restaurants in our competition. But we felt it was important to have that offering as we grow.
With the new offerings, the protein plates, the steaks, how much is that adding to, let's say, average ticket size, really, median sort of foot traffic in these locations are you seeing, and can actually attribute back to the selection of those two menu items?
Absolutely. So protein plates has been a huge driver of a lot of the momentum we've seen over the past 6 months. So as you look at our same store sales over the past few months, as well as some of the momentum we're seeing, specifically in a lot of our newer markets, much of that is coming from protein plates. Steak just launched about a week ago, so the test period went phenomenally well, but it's going to be very interesting to see, what that can do. The steak is slightly more expensive, so you will have a slight lift, at least from a mix perspective, depending on how it mixes it from a product mix perspective. So there is a slight price piece to it, but the real question will be can we drive transactions with it, which we're pretty confident we will be able to do.
And with the return to office, phenomenon being very scattered in terms of the trends across the country, what's the current lunch dinner mix right now that you're seeing? Are people working? I mean, is that do you see a direct correlation, with cities that have more people back in offices?
We absolutely do. Sweetgreen, so much of our business was heavily dependent on urban and office traffic before COVID. It's almost crazy to think that we've only gotten back to 50% of pre-COVID levels today. And so we have seen much more normalization. I think for the past 4 years, it was very volatile. We've now seen kind of this is the new normal. It is around that 50%. You'll see much bigger peaks on Tuesday and Wednesdays. Fridays are really become a work from home day, and different cities have different sorts of trends that we're seeing. And I do think there will be a slow normalization over the next few years as more and more companies want to bring people back, but we're not expecting a step change in a return to office at this point.
Your consumer base, I mean, I would argue, probably skews a little bit higher than the average income level of someone who frequents a McDonald's or any sort of more fast casual chains. Those companies have reported sort of weaker than expected foot traffic. They're showing that the lower side of the economy in those households are having more trouble paying their bills or making these decisions. Would you say that you're in a good spot at this point with the kind of consumers that you're targeting in terms of how many people are, obviously still frequenting your restaurants?
Yeah, I think we are. And we talked about this on our earnings call last week. We are not seeing really any consumer pushback. We feel like our consumers, while we're very mindful of it and want to be judicious about, further price increases, we don't have anything planned for the year. On a relative basis, Sweetgreen has become more affordable. If we look at the price we've taken over the past 4 years versus the competition, most other brands have taken north of 30% in price over the past 4 years, and some doing more so. And so on a relative basis, I think we're doing better, but and still very mindful of it. But so far, not seeing any consumer pushback from a price perspective.
And also on your costs, I mean, the supply chain concerns and the challenges, I imagine easing those for you have helped your cost as well.
Yeah, we've definitely seen an easing on both the commodity costs as well as on labor. We've also begun to see an easing on construction costs. However, as reported, across the news in the past 4 years, the inflation that we saw across all of those important things have been tremendous. So, our labor, food costs, construction, all saw really, really big inflation over the past few years, but a stabilization, and we're seeing much less pressure today.
All right, let's end on forward-looking, not forward-looking statements, forward-looking visions and thoughts. We haven't talked about AI. That's purposeful. I'd like to avoid that topic as much as possible, but I know it plays a big role in how you think about giving more personalization, decisions, taking those decisions away maybe from customers who just want to get something new without having to think about it. How are you using AI now in your processes, in your customer experience?
AI is a big word. It can mean a lot of things. And so today, yes, do we, internally use AI, and, are people using ChatGPT for things? Absolutely. Do we use things like machine learning for the personalization of our CRM or how we forecast sales and a lot of those things? I don't know if I would call those true AI. We do believe there's some opportunities around personalizing the menu better to your lifestyle and nutrition needs, as you referred to. And we've been piloting internally with some things like that. So we're very excited about this idea of personalized nutrition, and think Sweetgreen has a big role to play in that and bringing that to the mainstream. But I'd say it's very early, and we're just really, most of the AI stuff we're doing is kind of back office, CX or automation stuff that we're doing in terms of how to run a more efficient business.
Recent studies have shown that employees are a bit embarrassed to admit that they use ChatGPT, let's say. I'm curious how you have delivered any messages internally to your team. Do you encourage them to experiment? Do you use it? Do you talk about how you're using it and experimenting with it?
Absolutely. I think I think it's important to be curious about these sorts of things. The world is clearly going to change, I think, much more than any of us can anticipate, in ways I'm not sure we can anticipate either. And I think it's how we learn to leverage these tools. And so, about over a year ago, I want to say, 16 months ago, as things were starting, right after ChatGPT really came out, I brought an AI expert. One of my brother-in-law who works at Sequoia, I brought him into the office to give a talk at our town hall, and we did a fireside chat about what are we seeing out there, what are different ways to use it, what to expect. And we've continued to talk about it. I do, I have a monthly lunch I do with, a different group of people throughout the company. So I bring, 6 to 10 people together once a month from all different departments and all different levels within the company. And one of the things in the past few months that we talk about is, are you using AI in your life, in your world? How do you think you could use it? And it's amazing to see how many more applications, how many different applications there are, and different people using it in some fun ways. But still, again, super early.
What about you? What fun ways have you used generative AI for?
I think my most fun way for generative AI is with my kids. I've been doing generative AI bedtime stories with my 3.5-year-old. So we'll write a story together. I'll ask him for some prompts on what do you want the story to be about, and and I'll put his name in there, and I'll sneak in some lessons I want him to teach, and and it comes up with these like amazing stories that he loves. I actually just played with, I forgot the music one that came out that had a big splash a couple of weeks ago. And we made some songs together, which is super fun. So I just think it's really fun to experiment with these things.
Yeah, children's book authors beware. There's a bit of disruption there. And we got to end on a food note. So a lot of food trends. How closely are you following them on TikTok? How are you bringing that in maybe into the Sweetgreen experience? What proteins should we expect next?
It's really interesting to see how TikTok is driving so much of food trends. While I personally don't spend a lot of time on TikTok, I know our team does, and we're watching these things. So I don't have a great answer for you. I do think the big thing for us is around been a long, it's been multi-decade, and I think it's people caring more and more about eating, knowing where their food comes from and eating real food. I think is and again, this idea around more protein rich is just going to continue to grow. I think the other thing that we saw a lot is the importance of olive oil and not cooking in seed oils, which we had a really big announcement last year and moved all of our cooking to extra virgin olive oil. So those are some of the trends that I'm personally watching.
And any new proteins that we should expect on the menu?
We're experimenting with some things. We have a huge pipeline of things we're experimenting with, but too early to share.
All right. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for spending this time with us today. Congrats on all the success. Looking forward to the new stores. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Good to see you.
You too. Bye.